I'd like to spend a few minutes now and the audience questions, and since this is being recorded, I may paraphrase your question. You'll have to tell me if I got it wrong so that it can be recorded. Question right back there.
Professor Hyman, two questions. I wonder if you would comment or be willing to comment on the apparent split between Marcello Truzzi and CSICOP, and the other subject of interest would be Dr. Schwartz's experiments, afterlife experiments, and his new project out there in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot to comment on. Truzzi is a complicated fellow. You know, he came from a circus background. His father was one of the top, considered universally by those who know, as probably the second greatest juggler, circus juggler in the world, in history. So he was born actually in Russia, I think, because his father was with the European circus. Eventually, his father ended up with the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and that's why Truzzi grew up and went to school in Florida, because of that was where the Ringling Brothers have their camp, so on, their school. And so he got that interesting background. And then he became a sociologist at Eastern Michigan University. He's a person of tremendous breadth, knowledge, and into everything. But he was a person who was dedicated to being in the middle wherever he can. And his idea was, and we split on a lot of things, his idea was to be fair, you've got to give all sides equal time. And I likened his approach to, and he never liked this for some reason, but I likened his approach to saying, look, let's say we have a plate of food here we know is certified not having any bacteria or any dangerous organisms and stuff like that. And here we have a plate of food here that we know is just reeking with all kinds of terrible, dangerous substances in it. His approach to what's the best thing to eat is to mix the two 50-50. And his approach also was, you got to give equal time to all sides, even though one side may be crazy, and the other side has an awful lot of scientific evidence and everything behind it. And so I never could understand that, and we always split on that kind of a thing. He wasn't, the guy had, he had, and I shouldn't speak with him because, about this, because he's dead, but he was an interesting guy. He's a fascinating guy in many ways. But he also reveled in being friends with everyone. And he, one time I remember we were both at a American AAAS meetings in San Francisco. And while there, he said, Ray, why don't you come with me? I'm going to take you to dinner over to this guy's house, who happened to be the fellow who ran the church of the devil, Satan's church.
Temple of Set, maybe, or the
Anton
LaVey?
Yeah, Anton LaVey. Okay, so we went to Anton LaVey's house for dinner.
That's great.
And Anton LaVey had, unfortunately, he had a Black Panther roaming his house as well. And I always, when I went to get the bathrooms, I was really wondering, where was this panther?
So what you're saying is what led to the split was just this disagreement over
let me give you an example of that. The reason I brought Anton LaVey is typical. Truzzi considered him a good friend because they both loved circus music and had some sort of similar backgrounds. But LaVey was very proud of the fact that that he had all these people in the Church of Satan, all these suckers he called them when in front of us. And he, among other things, he sold sexual objects. He sold these inflatable dolls to them, and he made a big living. He was bragging about all that. I found it kind of off-putting. And Truzzi was always presented himself, and that's why he broke with Randi over moral issues. When Randi did the Project Alpha, Truzzi attacked him very viciously, saying that this was unethical to do. To go into a scientist's laboratory and waste his money by pretending that you got psychic powers.
Yeah, for our listeners, Project Alpha is when Randi conspired to have two young magicians pose as psychic claimants at Washington University and then kind of expose the fraud in a real gotcha moment.
Yeah. And the reason Randi did this was because Randi had always been told that when he says you ought to have a magician there when you design your experiments, you're going to test Uri Geller or some other psychic, the scientists always say, or the parapsychologists who are scientists say, we don't need a magician. You know, we're scientists. We know how to control things. They can't pull anything like that on us. So in order to show that they can pull something like that, Randi did that Project Alpha, and it worked. But Trutzi's total reaction was this was unethical, an unethical thing to do, and you're an unethical person. And so that's why I did big fight. Right. Well, Trutzi felt he was the only honest skeptic, honest broker in this whole skeptical business. I, Randi, and other people were biased skeptics, and there was the believers on the other side. And the only person who was the fair person was Marcello Truzzi, and he openly said these things, you know. And we were at a meeting once at the Naval Research Laboratory here in Bethesda. They held a meeting because Senator Claiborne Pell was very upset with the report I had made for the government on parapsychology. He said it was unfair and they shouldn't have had Hyman do it. They should have had someone else do it because Hyman's a known disbeliever or something like that. So Pell got the Office of Congressional Research, which I don't know if it still exists, but he got them to carry on a special meeting, and they had several parapsychologists, but they had Jim Alcock and myself there, and Marcello was there. And at this meeting, Marcello stood up and said, well, look, you have Hyman and Alcock over there, but they're not the fair people. I'm the only neutral guy here in this room here. And he represents, obviously, this will startle me because every parapsychologist always assumes and openly thinks that Marcello's on your side. All the skeptics thought Marcello was an enemy. So, but Marcello thought he was the only neutral person. He thought he was the one person in the middle.
I want to try to get some other questions. Any right here?
I'm curious your thoughts on James Randi's approach with the $1 Million Challenge. Do you see that as a good way to investigate, or what are your thoughts?
For the recording, I'll paraphrase just basically a question about is the $1 Million Challenge the way science is done? Is it good? Is it right? Is that the best approach as skeptics?
Well, I won't go into the way science is done. I have never been a fan of waving a $10,000 check and then ultimately $1 million check. I don't think that's a good approach to me, but I understand the approach that by Randi and the public, probably to the public it appeals more. It's a put up or shut up type of thing. But it makes no sense to me as a scientist. It doesn't prove anything one way or the other. But I just have to say it's not my approach, but I can't mock it.